So what if I were to tell you that George Lucas had actually had planned that not only Anakin Skywalker would be the chosen one, but his daughter would be too, Leia? And now it begs the question that this definitely would be very, very controversial if this were to come out today or even back then, honestly. But before we get into the video, we're on a road to 500 subs, so please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and please keep returning as I have videos like this coming every other day during the week. But that comes back to the topic at hand, and that is actually that George Lucas had intended for Leia to become the chosen one at some point during his trilogies. And I say trilogies because George actually had it written out all the way till episode 12. And the way I think George would have had this written was that around that time, around like the 11th, 10th, 11th, or 12th movie, Leia would actually be revealed as the new chosen one. And I want to honestly start off by saying, how would you guys feel about that? I mean, personally, I'm going to kind of get into that later on in this video, but how would you guys feel as though if Leia had become the next chosen one? And now that I've honestly gone back and I researched this topic even more, I've actually seen it all spread throughout Disney's Star Wars movies. I just didn't pay that much attention to it. Well, as you guys know, the sequels kind of sucked, so I didn't pay all that much attention to it. But Disney obviously didn't go down this route by making Leia the chosen one. They wanted to actually transfer her chosen one duties over to Rey. And honestly, that's really not that big of a surprise. I mean, Rey is their character. That is Disney's characters for Star Wars. Now, in the same article, this is a screenshot article I'm reading from, in the same thing, it also says that Leia was to become the Supreme Chancellor. And honestly, I can see that happening as well. I mean, Leia was a strong-willed character. She was a very strong, courageous leader. She made a lot of sense, and everybody loved her. And the way I see that part, I almost see this as George almost combining exactly everything that Padme was and combining everything that Anakin is or was at the same time and putting it all together and turning it into Leia. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to sit there and say, why wouldn't I go to Luke? Why wasn't Luke the perfect chosen one to replace Anakin Skywalker? And I would actually argue and say that he was. Luke Skywalker was actually the perfect candidate to replace Anakin Skywalker as the chosen one. And in the comics, he actually lived up and matched the potential of Anakin Skywalker. So everything on the Force side in the comic books and back in Legends, everything that Anakin was supposed to achieve through the Force and his power level and things along those lines, Luke actually achieved himself. So if Luke had actually achieved everything that Anakin Skywalker was supposed to be power-wise, why wouldn't he become the chosen one? And here's where I'm going to try to look through George's vision and see exactly what he was seeing. So if I were to go into George's chair and actually see exactly what see what George Lucas was trying to see as a big picture and why he would make Leia the chosen one, and that is maybe just due to her political side and her political understanding. She understood more about the political side and what the galaxy needed at the time. As you guys remember, even after Luke had defeated the Empire, the galaxy was still completely split on the political side of things. And on top of that, I think Leia would have always been capped at her potential because, as we all know, she didn't necessarily care about learning the Force all that much. She cared more about the political side of the galaxy and understanding that, more so than actually understanding what the Force was, so her potential would have always been capped. I mean, I honestly believe that Leia had just as much potential, if not more potential, than Luke Skywalker, or if not at the exact same. And honestly, what happened here is Luke was more akin to Qui-Gon Jinn. He did not care about the Republic. He didn't care about the politics side of the galaxy. All he trusted in was the Force, is exactly what the Force needed at the time. Even when Luke went off to create his own Jedi Order, he wanted absolutely nothing to do with the Republic. He just wanted the students and him to only focus on the Force and only the Force the entire time. And that's because he had learned from what the Jedi had done in the past. The Jedi during the Clone Wars had stopped trusting in the Force, and it was more about politics. Now, Leia, much like her mother, was more about politics and more about understanding people and understanding what their needs were. And that's something that I don't believe that Luke would have been capable of doing. I mean, obviously he cared about people and obviously he understood what people were going through because he also lived during the times of the Empire. But as I said before, all he cared about was the Force, and I believe that that's what the Force would have had Luke's role be. Now, what I believe Leia's role would have been in the Force is actually to bridge that gap between the Force and the political side of everything that's going on in the galaxy. And the reason I say this is, well, because George Lucas had actually had her plan to become the new Supreme Chancellor of the restored Republic. And now also that makes a lot more sense with how she would become the chosen one of her own right. With her knowledge of the Force, she would have been extremely powerful, and also at the same time with her leadership abilities and the way she would have been the Supreme Chancellor and ran the galaxy, it would have been a perfect bridge. Now, obviously, I don't have the answers because I am not George Lucas. I just tried to put on the vision and try to see exactly what George Lucas would have seen in this. Now, as I stated before, I can't necessarily answer exactly what George Lucas saw in this. I mean, hopefully one day he'll actually open up and talk about it more. Also, let's also not act like this wouldn't be controversial if something like this were to happen today. I mean, it wouldn't be as controversial as the Rey stuff and what's going on currently at Star Wars. I don't think it would have been anywhere near as controversial as that, but this still would have caused some controversy. I don't know. Hopefully George actually is able to open up and talk about this one day. Hopefully he gets a platform, or maybe he can go on a podcast, something along those lines, and talk about it. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Do you guys even like the idea of Leia becoming the chosen one, or being a chosen one of her own right? I don't necessarily know exactly what George was trying to go with this. And also, do you guys believe that this would have been extremely controversial? I personally think it would have been pretty controversial, but obviously, as I said before, not as crazy as what current Star Wars has going on. Anyway, may the Force be with you, and as always, have a great rest of your day.